Well, good morning. I wasn't sure if we were going to be on this morning. We had quite a night, but as I look at the news this morning, I see that the entire state of California has had quite a night. Our hearts go out to the folks in Southern California that have just experienced a wild couple of days of rain and flooding and things like that. Our power was out last night, yesterday afternoon, just shortly, not too long after I visited with you yesterday. The power went out, uh, and we got the candles out and things like that. We have a gas stove, so we were able to heat water and Constance cooked something. But the wind gusts did reach to like 70 miles an hour last night, and Constance was battling the plastic and tying things down uh, around our car, which has so many holes in it that the rain would have just flooded it completely. And she was heroically out there hammering the plastic to the. I can't I can't stress what a heroic pioneer woman she is. Uh, while I was holding the flashlight through the window, so she could see because it was dark. Uh, anyway, so we've had quite a night, but compared to others around the country with the wild weather that's going on, we got through it just fine. Around 10:30 last night, the power came back on, and we were able to heat up the house and get comfortable enough to go to bed. So that reporting in, and for all of our friends that wrote and emailed and messaged us, thank you very much for your concern, and we're okay, and I hope you are too. I held up this statement right there that it's all in your head. You just have no idea how big your head is. I talk about it a lot, and it's probably the most recognizable quote that you'll see sort of generally floating around. Uh, a DuQuette quote or a Babylon quote, uh, and it's the one that sort of gets me in doctrinal trouble with one school of thought in magic, that it isn't all in your head. It's out there too. And I try to explain, well, out there is in here. And while I was looking at, oh, I won't go into why I was looking at it. It was, of course, research for the new book. Uh, I ran across an example that I gave in one of my favorite books, which is in Low Magic. It's all in your head. You just have, that's actually the subtitle of the book. It's all in your head. You just have no idea how big your head is. And I was looking for a nice, clean explanation of that didn't have to take up a whole lot of time and such. And I found it in here in chapter 12, which is called The Rabbi's Dilemma. And uh, so I found that quote, and I clipped it and I could incorporate it in what I was working on. But then I went on to read the whole chapter, and I'm sure I've shared it with you, the whole chapter, because I think over the years I've read the whole book to you. Uh, but I thought I'd share it with you today, and at least that first part where I talk about it's all in your head. You just have no idea how big your head is. Starts off with a little epigraph from Michael Foucault. Divination is not a rival form of knowledge. It's a part of the main body of knowledge itself. I'm getting ready to talk about divination too. So the reader who has come this far with me should by now have a fair idea of my basic magical field theory. It is with the most profound conviction that I embrace the words that form the subtitle of this book. It's all in your head. You just have no idea how big your head is. This is not to say, however, that I believe magic is purely psychological. What I'm saying is there is more we don't understand about the human mind than we do understand. With each new discovery, we draw nearer to the realization that the mind is not limited by the brain. In fact, our brains, our bodies, our world, and even time and space are manifestations of aspects of mind. If we truly understand the limitless wonders of the mind and its relationship with the universal consciousness, we would know that in actuality there can be no outside of the mind. No outside to ourselves. Does the mind explain everything? Theoretically, I'd say yes. But I'd be the biggest liar in the universe if I were even to suggest that I am firmly in touch with that level of consciousness where everything is explained to me. And that's one of the reasons I find magic so fascinating and at times so unexplainable. One does not need to understand every detail of the inner workings of a computer in order to install and operate a complex program. So too, the magician does not need to objectively understand every detail of the inner workings of the infinite mind in order to operate the system. I do feel, however, that in this day and age it's wise to give credit where credit is due. And woe to the sanity of the modern practitioner who would have others believe that he or she has guilefully cornered the market on understanding magical powers. I reiterate all of this because I'm about to share two stories about magical operations that I've done for the benefit of others. Such efforts, when not considered carefully, threaten to challenge my it's all in your head field theory. After all, if the only thing I can change with magic is myself, then how can I seemingly help others with my magical endeavors? Do I think that I am ultimately responsible for all the good and evil in the world? I must confess, I'm not always clear on my own answer to those questions. But there's one thing upon which I am clear. Every bit of information that reaches the receptors of my senses and is processed by my brain, every myth I hear, every historical event I read about, every news story I watch, every book I read, every person I meet, every object, idea, image, sound, feeling, taste, emotion, observation, fear, or longing I encounter, everything changes me and becomes a living component in my conscious and subconscious reality. I am inextricably linked to everything that enters my realm of consciousness. And I am 100% responsible for how I process, react, and respond to it. It might appear to the casual observer that my magic affects changes in the outside world. but ultimately my outside world is one and the same with my inside world. If my magic does indeed bring about some desired change, it merely proves to me that somehow, somewhere, I've succeeded in transforming myself into the kind of person to whom such things happen. In the spring of 2002, I received an email from Ezriel, Ezriel, and I admit right up, that's not his real name. But I received an email from Ezriel, a rabbi living on the East Coast, who wrote that he was familiar with my work and felt confident I could magically help him resolve a serious problem. In his first note, he did not describe his problem or what he wanted me to do. He said he wanted to simply introduce himself and provide me with personal information, which he begged I would verify and keep confidential. This included his full name, address, professional titles, educational degrees, and details of his standing within an influential community of Orthodox Jews. He closed by restating his sincerity and that he was willing to fly me to the East Coast, pay my expenses, and award me with whatever my fee may be for, quote, this kind of black magic work, unquote. As you might imagine, I regularly receive letters and emails from some pretty colorful and sometimes very disturbed individuals. I occasionally receive requests from people asking me to curse an enemy, repel a psychic attack, expel a demon, extract an embedded extraterrestrial, or kindly endorse their claims that they're Jesus Christ, or Aleister Crowley, or Cagliostro. I nearly always leave these requests unanswered. Fair warning. But Rabbi Ezriel's note struck me as being something more. I took a few minutes and investigated on the internet. I was doing this all at work, sitting there in my little cubicle. I easily found a mountain of information about Ezriel's very ethnic hometown. When I realized his name, when I added his name to the search criteria, I found it prominently positioned among the religious and educational leaders of the community. I found it very odd that this pillar of piety would ask me to do anything of a black magic nature. Because he said he was familiar with my work, I assumed he was also familiar with the doctrines of esoteric Judaism. After all, nearly all the most popular systems of Western magic have their foundations in Hebrew Kabbalah. The term black magic wouldn't necessarily strike the same irrational terror in the heart of an esoteric Jew as it would in that of a mainstream Chrislmu, Christian, Muslim, or Jew. I was intrigued, so I cautiously emailed him back and inquired about the details of his problem. His response was immediate and poignantly candid. His only son, David, who himself was a rabbi, had been married for nearly 2 years and had not yet become a father. David and his wife, Sarah, these are all pseudonyms here, or not their real names. David and his wife, Sarah, had been examined by physicians who found them both to be in good health and capable of conceiving a child. after giving me a short and breathtakingly politically incorrect lecture on the religious and cultural importance of his son having a child, especially a boy, he repeated his offer to immediately bring me to the East Coast, pay me to do whatever it was necessary to make his daughter-in-law pregnant. Now, I'm sure he didn't mean personally. Okay. It's just fun to put it that way. After I banished from my vulgar comedian's brain 1,000 crude and sophomoric possible responses to that statement, I took a day to gather my thoughts and pondered how I should respond to his offer. I hope the reader will appreciate the fact that I'm not a wealthy man. I connive and struggle day to day, month to month, just to pay the rent for our little duplex and pay the extortion fees to the blood-sucking organized crime cartels that pose as American health insurers. Try as we might, in our 42 years of marriage, which is now 56, I think, Constance and I have never been able to rise above the station of genteel poverty. I confess the thought of taking financial advantage of this situation did indeed cross my lumpenproletariat mind. Guess that's what I am. The next morning I wrote back and answered as honestly as I could. I insisted it would not be necessary for him to bring me to the East Coast or for him to come to California, and that I'd be happy to freely offer my magical advice. Frankly stated, however, that I thought it would be unwise for me to attempt to magically intrude on the lives of his family in this manner. He responded within minutes, insisting that, on the contrary, he most certainly did want me to magically intrude. Specifically, he wanted me to call up a demon of the Goetia and command it to make Sarah pregnant. I replied to the effect that even if I were willing and able to raise a fertility demon, and Sarah did become pregnant and give birth to a baby boy, there would be serious and unavoidable psychological consequences for both the child and his family. I asked him to realize how, like in a fairy tale, the blessing would soon turn into a curse, how the happiness that would first accompany the child's birth would soon be overshadowed by the nagging fear that every illness, every accident, injury, or misfortune visited upon the child throughout his lifetime was somehow the evil result of the demonic black magic operation that engendered his nativity. The rabbi coldly responded, quote, "I am willing to take such a curse upon myself." And that's where I'm going to end it today. I decided I'm going to go ahead and pick up part 2 of the rabbi's dilemma. If you've heard it before, I apologize, and I hope you're enjoying hearing it again. And if you haven't read it for yourself in low magic, it's all in your head. You just have no idea how big your head is. It comes from the good folks at Llewellyn, and is probably one of my favorite books of all times. It's sort of like My Life with the Spirits Part 2. Anyway, that's it. As you can see, there is a measure of sunshine at the moment. It's going to continue to rain on and off here. And tomorrow Parking Lot Tuesday. We're going to take the prophylactic condom off the car out there, which is going to take about an hour. Everything's tied up. We're going to take it off and go to the parking lots tomorrow. So I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully, for part 2 of the Rabbi's Dilemma. Until then, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other, and try to stay safe and deal with the weather emergencies as best you can. We'll all get through this. And if we don't, nobody gets through everything. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.